I thought since I see a lot of rounding errors on work that I would do a quick video reviewing what rounding is. So this is something that should be taught in elementary school, and I know that it's not always presented in a really clear format, and it does lead to a lot of confusion even in upper levels of math where students just aren't sure about the rules or they're not sure about the vocabulary that's involved. So I want to address some of the mistakes that I see. So in essence, when we round numbers, we take a number and we bump it to the closest number of a particular place value. So what I have on the screen here is a number line that counts up by tens. And so what we're going to do is round some numbers to the nearest 10. Now that's TEN, 10. So you always want to notice what place value you are supposed to be rounding to. So here's the basic concept. If you had, say, the number 12, and you look at the number 12 on the number line, it would be right about here. And if you're asked to round to the nearest 10, it means you're going to round to either 10 or 20. So 10 is the 10 value lower, and 20 is the 10 value higher. And all rounding is you look to see which one it's closer to. Well, 12 is closer to 10 than it is to 20, and so we would call this rounding down. We round it down because it goes to the left on the number line. Let's take a look at, say, the number 26. Okay, and number 26 would be like right about there on the number line. If you were rounding this to the nearest 10, well, 20 is the number to the left and 30 would be the number to the right. And just as before, you look to see which one it's closer to. And so in this case, we would round up to 30 for the simple reason that 26 is closer to 30 than it is to 20. That's really all that you're doing. Now, that leads to maybe the question, like, what do you do if it is right smack dab in between, where the distance between the lower and the higher would be the same? Then in that case, the default is to round up. Okay, and that really is the default. Like, it is smack dab in between. And sometimes for some statistics, there's actually a rule where you would look another decimal point out, and like if it's even, you round up, and if it's odd, you round down. I don't remember what the rule is because I never use it. But it's a way of kind of splitting up the stuff that's right in the middle so you're not always going in the same direction. All right, and that's pretty much all rounding is. So when you are asked to round, you're always told what place value you need to round to. So this specific example is rounding to the tens place. So you're taking a number and rounding it to the nearest 10. I do want to point something out though. Let's do this. We're going to do 44.5. Okay. 44.5. So before I move on to more place value stuff, 44.5. If you were to look at that on the number line, okay, it would be right about there. It would actually be to the left of the 45 and would round down, therefore, to the 40. There is sometimes a temptation, if you watch where I'm pointing, students will go another decimal point over and they'll say, oh, but that 5 will round the 4 up to a 45, and then the 45 will round up to the 50. You don't want to do that. So when you're asked to round to a place value, you only looked at the very next digit over, which in this case would be the 4. So if you're asked to round to the nearest 10, you look at the ones digit. You don't look over to the tenths digit. Sometimes students do that. It's like chain rounding where they kind of look too far to the right and chain it up. But if you look at the number line, the 44.5 is closer to the 40 than it is to the 50. So you don't want to accidentally round stuff up. It happens every once in a while. Okay, so that brings us to place values. Okay, so we're going to just go over some vocab here. All right. And that's as far as I'm willing to go out. Okay, and then we'll pick one of these place values and we'll do some rounding here. So this is the hundreds place. Okay, so whatever digit you have there, like if we had a 4, we would read that as 400. This digit here is the tens. Okay, so that would be like a 50 or like in this case, 450. Okay, that's our 10 spot. This digit here, okay, there's a couple of names that would go by. Sometimes it's called the ones. I usually call it the units. Like it's just the unit. So it's just like 3 is 3 is 3. This has to do with our number system being base 10, which is probably not something we want to talk about in this video. And so that would be the number 453. Some of you in elementary school might have done this kind of thing where you would learn how to split the numbers up like that. And so really what the number is 400 plus 50 plus 3. Now, on the other side of the decimal place, this I think causes some serious issues sometimes. There is no analogous place value for the units. So this place value here is the tenths. And I'm not totally sure that everybody knows that. That is the tenths place. So this would be 453 and 2 tenths. If you think about this, okay, and you like think about where that is, this would be 2 dimes, okay, which is a tenth of a dollar, 20 cents. So that's your tenth spot. There's no units spot. It's the tenths. This digit here is the hundredths. Okay. I don't know what other colors I have. I have a brown. Okay. So after the brown, after the yellow, the hundredths, we have the thousandths. And, oh gosh, we have a gray color. Okay. And that would be the 10,000s. Not, okay. You guys know what I mean. Okay, this is like a super chill video. So, yeah, so that's the names. So if you were asked to round something to the nearest tenth, this is what we're talking about. We're going to round it to that position. So let's just kind of go through that and see what that rounding would look like. So the directions say round to the nearest tenth, and your calculator spits that out. So there's your tenths position right there. You only look one digit to the right. So you don't go to the 7 and say, oh, the 7's going to round the 4 up to the 5, and then the 5 will round the 2 up to the 3. You don't do that, okay? You only look at the one digit to the right. Whatever's out here, we don't care. Okay, don't care about it. Because that's a 4, okay? The 4 is going to put us closer to the lower number than to the higher number. And so this number rounds down to 453.2. Now, I have seen students that when you say round down, they will do 453.1. You don't want to go down to the 1. That's like jumping, oops. Didn't mean to do that. Okay. That's like jumping over and saying, oh, instead of rounding it down to 40, we're going to jump all the way down to the 30. And that's not the closest to 10. So the idea of rounding is you're going to round it to the tenths that is closest. If we were to put this on a number line, okay, you would have 453.2, and then you have 453.3, and then our number is 453.24. Okay, so 453.24, that's the only digit you look at. You don't look further, and that's going to be closer to the 253.2 than to the 253.3. So that's essentially what you're doing. So just as like a little like practice, okay, if you were asked to round these numbers, okay, I don't know, I'm just like making stuff up. Okay, and you were asked to round these to the nearest hundredth. That's this position right here, and you're only going to look at the one digit to the right. That's what determines which hundredth you're closer to. Are you closer to the one on the left or to the one on the right? So this one would round up because of the 8, so we would have 25.28. We kick it up. This one also rounds up because the 5 defaults to up, so 26.35. This one, though, is going to round it down because it's a 2. So 27.11. And that's how your rounding works. And you do need to know the vocabulary. So if you're asked to round to the nearest 100, that's not the same as rounding to the nearest 100th. You have to listen and read the words appropriately and then know what numbers you're looking at and how to round them. It's not the same as truncating the numbers, which is just when you chop them off. And so you might just chop off the 8 and you just say 25.27. Well, that's not the same thing. Okay, last thing I want to address is number of decimal places. What does that mean? Because that's the other way that you will hear these problems given. So it might not say round to the nearest 10th, but it might say round to 1 decimal place or round to 2 decimal places. Those are places after the decimal point. And recently, I've seen a lot of students count digits to the left of the decimal point as decimal places, and that's not what is meant by that expression. So if you had 37.12, 126, and you were asked to round to 2 decimal places, that's another way of saying that this digit right here, okay? 2 decimal places. Here's the first decimal place, there's the second decimal place, and so that would round to 37.13. If you were asked to round to 3 decimal places, okay, there's 3 decimal places, that's your third one, 1, 2, 3, there's the 3 decimal places. This one rounds down to 37.126. Okay, and that's really all I wanted to cover. Some of you already know that. You know all of this, and I'm aware that you know all of this because you round correctly. But if you've gotten comments from me in Focus or on any of your homework, and I've circled stuff or I've written something in GoFormative that says rounding is a problem, hopefully this video refreshes your memory or it clears up a misconception that you might have about rounding, because you definitely don't want to get points deducted when you understand the complex algebra, but then you mess up the place value and the rounding. So hopefully this video was helpful for you.